Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and we are back in a swelteringly hot summer for more of our summer shenanigans in the offseason. This is our favorite shenanigans. It's the beginning of our season predictions, but first we're going to talk a little bit of football news and sports news and stuff. Mike, are you alive? Are you melted into the floor?
I am impaled into the upholstery. It is, we are recording this on Thursday evening. My Gators are down 5-0 in an elimination game in the College World Series, so I have one eye on the big screen here at Worldwide Cranky headquarters. So you might see, as we're discussing, how we're going to handle the Vikings in week one, all of a sudden me make a face. That is probably because something bad just happened.
We are recording this on a Thursday in which the Devils finally went out and got themselves a goalie, so I am wearing my Devils shirt, and I am excited for hockey season, even though it has not yet ended. So finally something for me to root for as a Devils fan, I think, coming up this year.
It's very aggravating, Grump. I mean, the team I hate the most in basketball just won an NBA title. The team in hockey I hate the most is up 3-2. One of the schools I hate the most is in the driver's seat to win the College World Series. The Yankees have the best record in baseball. That's no bueno for me, as my Rays are in last place. The hits just keep on coming.
Soccer? Do you watch Un-American Football?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, NYCFC is playing well, and I'm actually going down to Atlanta next week to see the U.S. in the Copa, so that's going to be fun. I mean, we should do really well in that. But, with an upcoming football season of probably a bad college team and probably a bad pro team, these are the dark times, Grump. I'm struggling.
Don't go anywhere, guys.
Yeah, stay tuned. Because you know what it is, Grump, as we start to talk about pens and pencils, now that my slate is starting to clear of, basketball's in the rearview mirror, hockey pretty much is, we're in the dog days of baseball with a last place team. Now I'm really starting to get emotionally invested in this Giants season. From the end of the season to now, it's more about, who's coming, who's going, impacts, coaching changes, X's and O's, black and white. But now comes part of my brain is cleared. I can start thinking about this team. And, this pencils and pens exercise is a way to really start diving in for our kind of temperature check of how we feel. And not feeling so hot, Grump. Gotta be honest. It's not good.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. No.
Yeah, I think that's how most Giants fans feel. Every day I open up Twitter and I see people continuing to freak out on a day-to-day basis in the summer. Newsflash for people is that it's not going to get better in the summer. The offseason is pretty much over. A few little additions will come in August and July. And that's about it. So this is the team, and this is the schedule. So it is what it is.
There's two things you can do in this offseason, Grump. One is get familiar with this new roster. We got some exciting new rookies. We made some free agent deals to kind of shore up some places. But more importantly, as Giant fans, and, I may become public enemy number one on this show, is setting realistic expectations for what you're going to be watching for the next 6 months for this team. And don't bitch and moan and freak out about everything that doesn't go well. If your expectation is we're going to have a deep January run, it may not be your year. But, we will talk about this as we go forward in the weeks leading up to the regular season, that I'm recalibrating my expectation for different things than an 11-win season and a first-round bye in the playoffs. It's just the way it is.
You gotta be careful. I had said on Talking Giants a couple weeks ago something hyperbolic to the effect of, I don't care if we lose 15 games as long as we lose them like 35-31 instead of winning 15 games 10-3 or something like that. And I was called a fake fan for rooting to lose, which is not at all what that means, but that's okay.
That's right. Grump, we've only had season tickets out for 15 years. We've been following the team for
Love watching them lose.
30 and 40 years, and a majority of those seasons have been bad football. We do all the research and do a podcast now for 6+ years, twice a week, because we're fake fans. That makes
I had hair at one point. That hair has slowly disappeared as this team has gotten worse.
That is true.
In 2011, I had a head of hair.
Hey, man, if anybody saw pictures of the Grump when he was back in high school.
Oh, yeah, I
know. I mean, okay, back when he was in high school, this team was actually really good.
That's true.
But yeah, nobody was confusing him with Brian Dable back in his youth. That's
no,
sure.
God, no. Although Dave's is looking nice and thin lately. Good for him. Sidebar.
Nice work.
So with the summer coming up here, this is kind of dead space a little bit. I will shamefully admit I've watched some CFL in the last 2 weeks.
Holy Jesus!
Yeah,
really?
Well, I mean, I don't care about baseball. What are my other options for sports? And I love football more than most people.
That's true. That's fair. I mean, it's
fine. I didn't say that I loved it. I just said that I was watching it.
So let me ask you something. When you're watching CFL, I mean, unless I haven't been paying attention to you for the last 20 years, you don't have a favorite CFL team. So are you watching for, that guy could be an NFL guy, or you just love the game and just enjoy watching?
No. So here's my my history with oddity of football, right? So growing up with my dad would put on anything on TV, especially if it's something he doesn't know anything about. So I have watched rugby, I've watched Australian rules football, and I have watched the CFL in the past at my parents' house when I was younger.
Any of you people, by the way, for any of you people who are as old as I am, or if not even older, the early years of ESPN before they got college basketball or any major sport primarily was rugby, Australian rules football, CFL, and a whole bunch of sports centers.
European League football as well.
Yes.
I remember watching all of that, with the Galaxies and all those teams, the Dragons. I remember all that. However, the CFL is the one thing, like I can see like a transitionary thing from rugby to certain positions in the NFL. And I can see that transition in other things as well. But CFL is a little gimmicky. It's very different and weird. And there are some things there I can see it. And we see the reverse all the time. There are lots of former NFL players that have, or just, college names that people would recognize play in the CFL. It's just different. It's kind of weird. So no, I don't really. That's like the one thing that I don't watch for that. I do watch the spring league stuff with the UFL, USFL, XFL, all that stuff in the past. That was very much the American game with only slight rule changes. I'm not going all the way back to the 2001 XFL with like some gimmicky stuff. I just mean like the recent iterations. Those were very much similar to the NFL, and that's very easy then to draw lines like, hey, this guy is quite literally doing it in a competitive environment. I could see him being a depth piece. CFL, I don't have a favorite team, but because I'm just watching it pretty much for fun right now, I decided to pick one. I went around, looked at uniforms, histories, and stadiums.
Can I guess? Can I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I picture you as an Edmonton Eskimos guy.
No, sir. Good guess, though.
All right.
Well, so they're the Elks now because times are changing, and I believe that is a disparaging term.
Oh, for Christ's sakes, really?
I don't know. I mean, I don't claim to be a First Nations expert, but they are the Elks now, the Edmonton Elks. But I am a BC Lions guy. Vancouver looks like a beautiful place. That stadium just had 54,000 people in it for their opening game.
Who was the post-game concert to get 54,000 people in?
The pre-game concert was 50 Cent. Well done. Well done. No, I mean, I'm not gonna argue with you. You're absolutely right. But no, I don't really. But what I will say is, and I'm not going to dwell on this for very long before we get into our season predictions, but I do want to talk a little bit about the UFL Championship, which happened on Sunday. And I'm not going to talk about the football at all. This was a Fox broadcast, so it was Kurt Menefee and Joel Klatt were the play-by-play and color commentary. And Kurt Warner was in attendance. I believe his son is on one of the teams, but I think he was going to be there anyway because it was in St. Louis.
You still got that wife? Is she still around?
Kurt Warner's wife?
Yeah, the one who had the the biker jackets she used to wear when they was winning MVPs.
Oh, I assume so. I don't know though. I didn't really follow his personal life, especially in his retirement. But who else was there was Tom Brady. Tom Brady was there to present the UFL Championship MVP award at the end of the game, and Fox brought him into the booth at one point. Now, Tom Brady is supposed to start broadcasting this year, correct?
That is correct. He's pegged to be the number one guy. They've moved Greg Olsen to the number 2 team.
I had a lot of criticism for that, and I don't know if we said it on the show or if you and I just talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about Greg Olsen quite a bit. Like, I was not a fan.
Not Olsen, about Brady.
Oh, about Brady being on, going right to number 1. Yeah, it just seemed like a very curious move where a guy, that purely is like here's a star.
Yes.
Which is unnecessary in a sport that's so popular. Like, I am not choosing, and I think most people are not choosing what game they're watching at 4:35 on a Sunday based on the announcers. And, if it's talking about, like, the Thursday night game or the NBC game, you could have no announcer and people are just still going to watch. So it was just a very, very curious move.
Well, that's the thing, too, that's super weird because, like, the 4:30 game, it's like you don't really have a ton of options. You have 2 options most of the time. Now, I understand in this day and age a lot of people have Sunday ticket and shit, but, like, people who have Sunday ticket, at least as far as I understand it, are watching their home teams in an outside market most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like the America's Game of the Week or whatever. Like, isn't there only really 2 games happening at 4:30 on Fox, and then like 2 games on CBS?
It's usually probably.
It's like 4 to 5 games are happening, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's like 60 of a normal week of games. I'm gonna say 65% are the 1:00 Sunday, 20% are the 4:00 window, and then the rest of it are Thursday, Sunday night, Monday night. Right.
So I don't think anyone at all is ever choosing what game to watch based on the announcer. So
what is your viewing habit then? So let's say the Giants are a 1:00 game. It's a Giants away 1:00 game. So
let's just say it's a Giants bye week.
All right. Well, even that. So the 1:00 game or the 4:00 game. What are you basing on? How do you watch?
So I'm watching first and foremost if the Giants are on a bye week or if I'm otherwise not interested immediately. Like, I'm not personally invested in the game that I pick. I'm going to pick the one that's in the NFC and most closely relates to affecting the Giants. So if there's a division game, that's where I'm going. Again, this is all based around selfishness. I am not, and I love football. I'll watch any game you want. But if of the games I'm selecting, I'm going in a matter of priority where I have a rooting interest. And rooting interest is going to be centered around my team.
And I think we're starting to be a little bit of a dying breed in America about the sports fan, where fans are getting less and less into watching my team, and they start gravitating more towards either my favorite players, the news of the day story that's being pushed at them, or their gambling interests.
And that might be. But, I mean, let's even take my selfishness out of it. If I'm going to pick a game, I'm going to pick the game that's going to be the best matchup. Like, if there's, I don't know, like a cellar dweller team playing against a powerhouse is just not something I'm interested in. I'm not really interested in seeing, a team playing with their backup quarterback getting pummeled by a Super Bowl favorite.
Well, let me ask you another question. Grump. Do you have Sunday ticket?
I do not, no.
Okay. So I was going to ask you, hypothetically, if you did, would you at 1:00, if the Giants had a bye week, would you be picking one of 3 options? 1, an NFC East matchup. 2, the best matchup of the day, regardless of division or conference. Or 3, red zone.
Me, I would be taking the NFC East matchup. You're saying that that's like 2 NFC East teams playing each other, right? A division.
Exactly. Let's say it's Philly playing Washington.
I would take it in the order that you just said. My priority order would be Philly, Washington, and if that game starts to get less interesting, I might switch to something else. And then Red Zone, the only time, honestly, I watch Red Zone is if we are at a tailgate for a 4 o'clock game and we're watching the 1 o'clock games. You know what I mean? Like, that's a cool way to see a million things going on at once when you are surrounded by noise and alcohol. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little hard to focus on one game with all the in-between nonsense that goes on between plays. It's very easy to just kind of drift off and get distracted by conversation. Red Zone is very easy at keeping a group of people satisfied. So that's kind of the only time I watch it.
Oh, see, I am a very, very big Red Zone. And quite honestly, if the Giants are on at 1 o'clock, or there's that NFC East matchup, or if we're getting late in the season and there's, let's say, let's say the Bears and Packers are playing, and that's going to impact the Giants getting a wild card or not, that would be in that spot. If it's not one of those two scenarios, I almost exclusively have Red Zone on.
I don't have a problem with Red Zone. It's just it's very hard to not find a game I'd rather be watching. If it's just me. Mm-hmm. If there is none, like let's say Dallas has the Monday night game against Philly, Washington plays at 4:30, the Giants have a bye, and now I have 1 o'clock games to think. Maybe then I'm watching Red Zone.
I'm definitely Red Zone, unless we're getting into like early December. And okay, like I said, we're dealing with Green Bay to get the third wild card. Right. I'll have that Green Bay game. And we also, Cranky Wife is a Niner fan, so there'll be 49ers, but they're usually playing, most of the time they're playing in the 4 o'clock window. So
right.
That solves the 1 o'clock problem.
So, I mean, my bigger point here is I don't think anyone at any point is turning on, or at least a very small minority, are turning on games for specific announcers. I will say I prefer Fox's broadcast in general over CBS's, although it's been close. I prefer it over ESPN. To me, is the worst. Amazon is fine, and NBC is fine. But to me, Fox is the most consistent, decent broadcast, not usually frustrated with their broadcasts.
I think their play-by-play guys, their roster is the best.
It's the most consistent among teams, I think.
I think personally thought that their top team is weak, but I love Kenny Albert, always have in any sport he does. I like Kevin Harlan, whatever sport he does. CBS, I like Nance.
I do.
I like Gus Johnson whenever he's doing a game. Or he's Fox now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Gus. Okay, so Gus Johnson is your number 4 announcer, and I love Gus Johnson. So, yeah, Fox to me, all their color guys to me all sound like the same guy.
All right, so let's get to the actual point here. We're talking a lot about other shit. Tom Brady was terrible on the mic. If you haven't watched the UFL Championship game, I don't blame you. It was a brief moment. It was maybe 2 drives, I think, one for each team, maybe 3 drives. It was uncomfortable. It was audibly uncomfortable. They were kind of leaving him dead air to kind of say stuff, and he wasn't. So then they had to help him along. I'm talking about Joel and Kurt. Had to help him along, and they just kind of started asking him Tom Brady questions, right?
And that's the worst thing you can do, because, an example of that is like in the finals, the NBA finals, they'll bring in like a guest analyst, and it'll be like Josh Hart with the Knicks. And they start talking about him. It's like, we only have 12 minutes. Talk about the fucking game. I don't want to hear about you.
They were trying to tease him into actually talking about the game. So what they were saying is like, look, you played in a bunch of championships games. So at the time, the game was scoreless. It was 2 very good. The league's 2 best defenses were really doing work. So that's what they were kind of trying to get him. That was their way of getting him to talk about the game and be a little bit more detailed. And he loosened up a bit after that. But it was, at least to me, audibly uncomfortable that they were like leaving him gaps to start, getting his feet wet into this role that he has already been paid like $500 million or something insane before ever doing it before, and he was predictably out of practice.
Well, let's be fair to him on this, and I'm not the biggest Tom Brady fan at all, but let's be fair. This is not his normal team he'll be working with. He probably had next to 0 reps with this team. he's probably had very few amount of reps, period, doing game scenario. Because again, it's only, we're talking mid-June, and he's been on the, doing everything other than actually doing this just yet. And we're talking about a league he probably knows next to nothing about, like the players.
Well, hang on. I'm gonna pump your brakes before you even finish, because the purpose of this was not to dump on Tom Brady. The purpose of this was to dump on the decision to toss a man with no experience into the A spot for $500 million without him ever doing. Like I said, no experience. Now, everything you just said are reasons to not be good at this. However, there is no way that this was an accident by Fox. He didn't just wander into the broadcast booth. I guarantee you that they wanted to hear what he was going to sound. And not for nothing, not knowing shit about this league means nothing, because it is your job as an announcer to know everything about whatever game you are covering. And you are somebody who saw Joe Buck on a plane. What did he have and what was he doing?
Oh, I saw Kenny Albert. Yeah.
Sorry, it was Kenny Albert.
Kenny Albert had a binder, about a 10-inch thick binder, to talk about Rays Twins. Now, Rays Twins are not exactly the two marquee teams in the league, but at the game he was covering, the next day, and he was doing his research to do that. And
that's my point. I mean, like, the UFL Championship is something that we knew the two teams being in it for a week. He had plenty of time to learn something. And I'm not saying he didn't know anything. I'm saying he didn't say anything. So
and it's a weird thing, because you would think, because being a celebrity, A, he's a major celebrity in sports. B, it'd be his first time doing it. I didn't see any promotion anywhere that he would be on. I don't know. It's like they kind of like hit him in broad daylight that he was doing it, but it's like the whole purpose of you having Tom Brady is to get eyeballs on your network. So it was just kind of like a really stupid decision around to have him in that game.
Again, this is really... having him in that game, he, like I said, he popped into the booth, but I don't think it was an accident.
Popped in.
He did.
I was just hanging around St. Louis, and
no, he was there to deliver the MVP trophy.
Right.
So,
right,
but I mean,
right.
but yeah, I mean, he absolutely went in there for a purpose, for a reason. I'm sure Fox was listening. They wanted to know how this was going to go, and Tom Brady is, and again, this is not meant to dump on him, the person, but this is a competitor. This is how he's supposed to be approaching new work. I would have thought I was actually prepared for him to knock my socks off. And I don't know what Tom Brady's going to be, but I don't think it was smart to give someone, like, I don't know, man.
Me and Cranky Wife had this discussion this week. Is Tom Brady what you consider charming? Or do you consider him like a Derek Jeter, very programmed and prepackaged?
I was going to say he's more like a robot than he is charming. He's not uncharming, you know what I mean? Like, he's not totally uncouth, like...
He's charming in the most robotic way. Like, there's some people like, Matt Damon or, Brad Pitt. Or George Clooney. They're just charming people. You just see them and you're like, I don't even know what he's saying. I don't care. He just seems like a likable guy. And
I'm in a good mood around you.
And I'm under the spell of whatever he's selling me. Brady's got some of that, but he's just the way he comes across is so manufactured and programmed and polished that a lot of that charm goes away. So, a guy like Tony Romo, I think is charming at the same time that he's... In the beginning, he was extremely prepared, and he always brings the passion and the funk. Now, it's debatable how prepared he is in the last couple of years, but he's still like, oh, okay, it's a Romo game. I'm gonna be excited listening to this game.
You can't not be.
Did you get any, forget what he said or anything? Did he make the game seem more exciting that he was doing it, or is it just like...
Dude, not even a little bit. Like... Once they coaxed him out of his shell a little bit, and he was a little bit more able to talk about, in championship, they're all championship games are different. You got to take them how they come and all this other stuff. It was about as milquetoast as you could possibly make an exciting... It was a championship game. I mean, no matter what level of competition, a championship game for, the ACC is still a championship game that some people are invested in for some level of excitement.
Sure.
Something is on the line. It's hard to make championship games boring.
I'd be pretty annoyed if I was the UFL, where it's my marquee event, and it got superseded by the fact of a cameo by
Yeah.
the league. They're trying to set themselves apart from a little bit. They were trying to make their own mark on their own. And the only thing that we spent too much time talking about the game. Like, we didn't even talk about the game. I didn't even know who was in it. I know it was
Yeah.
in St. Louis, but
That's not real.
we're talking about an announcer.
Well, I mean,
So
so here's the thing. He's going to be an NFL announcer this year. I do think that he will be okay. I don't think that he's going to be Jason Witten. It wasn't preposterous what he did. It was just surprisingly dull for a man who's getting paid the top dollar to do it.
and he'll be with Kevin Burkhardt, who, again, he's not really my cup of tea. I don't think he's great, but everybody thinks he's a pro, and
I think
you
he's
know
got the voice, and for the play-by-play guy, that's all he's got to have.
he's adequate enough to. Well, some guys, they like a guy like Jim Nance is a master play-by-play guy because he sets the table for everything.
Right.
Also,
Hmm.
and I don't think Burkhardt's there, but
He
Burkhardt is
but he
like
has
the
the
rest.
voice.
Yeah.
He'll work.
Hmm.
But I also think, like we've seen in the past, like Sims perhaps was driving Nance down, whereas Romo brought Nance up.
Absolutely gave him a burst of energy
Okay.
that you know. Yeah, agreed.
Okay, he's making sure we agree. All right, so I mean that's really my main thing here is I was very disappointed in the Tom Brady broadcast, the brief moments there, and I don't know, maybe they just told him to go in there and just have a chat. Maybe he wasn't supposed to be prepared. I don't know, but I was
asterisk that he did it kind of cold.
yeah, but I hope that it's better than that because it will make the A games not fun.
Sure.
And speaking of unfun games, let's get into our season predictions here. Now, for new listeners of the show or people who black out in the summer or just don't listen to us in the summer normally, this is a fun little thing that we do where we're going to go through each game week by week. It is June, so we are making a completely fun and mostly blind
Predictions.
like a prediction on whether or not the Giants are going to win or lose. And what we do is we put our confidence level is how permanently we write down these things. So a win or a loss in pencil is a shaky confidence, but just kind of leaning that way.
Yeah.
Or a win and loss in pen is much more confident, and then of course we get hyperbolic and say other things that are either more or less permanent.
Right. And the two things to remember as we're doing this exercise: one, we're assuming full health. This is the roster we have. We can't predict. Like, we didn't do this last year with Daniel Jones being out for two different times during the year, and by week 13, we're playing Dallas with Tommy DeVito. That's not the way this works. This is with the roster we have now against the roster we think our opponents will have going the way. And the second thing is, with pencils and pens, it doesn't mean, oh, Giants are beating Washington and Penn. That doesn't mean we think they're going to win by 50. It just means we're pretty sure they're going to win.
Right.
So that's a big difference between
we might even say things like, I guarantee you we're going to lose by 3. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I will say with the injury front that players with predictable injury histories are something that we take into account. So, like, if we're playing Saquon Barkley in week 12, it might be something like, well, was Saquon Barkley even healthy by week 12? You know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
that'd be part of our
that's
discussion
a
for
thing.
sure.
But, we're not going to assume that, like, well, 30% of the roster is going to be hurt. So, like, that's not what we're doing.
Right.
So let's dive right into week 1. I think that this is an incredibly interesting week 1 matchup. I'm really excited for this week 1 matchup. It is at home against the Vikings at 1 o'clock. Giants-Vikings week 1. Cranky Fan, give me your prediction.
I do this every year, Grump. I'm always like, week 1, I'm full of piss and vinegar. I'm excited for this team. They're going to win. I am, we texted earlier today, and I always gave you my malaise of this team right now. And the more I'm starting to dig in deeper and deeper and deeper, the more worrisome I'm getting. And this is exactly the type of game to me that if it wasn't a week 1, I'd have a different prediction about it. So I'm going to pretend like this isn't a week 1. A couple things going in the Giants' favor. JJ McCarthy I don't know. Is he predicted to be starting on week one? If he is, he's a rookie with high expectations starting on the road in week one. If he's not, Sam Darnold is the quarterback who's, Sam Darnold. I think I need this Giants team to show me something before I start going in and saying, new year, they're going to start fresh and go with a win. I just feel like this year is going to be very wonky and testing the nerves of a lot of people. And I think they're going to start that right away with a giant loss in pencil.
That's really interesting. So one of the things that I wrote down for this is the day one starter McCarthy or is it Darnold? So let's talk about that because
Sure.
McCarthy. Well, I mean, like, so what do you think? Like, is McCarthy their long haul that they're going to baby along? Like, so it's a quarterback that came with a fair amount of questions into this draft, a voluminous amount of questions actually. Do they baby him? Like, this was their pick early in the draft. Do they sit him for a while if they feel he is not ready to see NFL defenses or anything like that? Like, what is your gut instinct on what the Minnesota Vikings are looking for? Because Sam Darnold, I don't think he's horrible. If you forget where he was drafted, like, is he better than Tyrod Taylor?
Is he?
I think so. I think he's got better arm talent anyway. He's just less experienced. Remember, Tyrod's like basically my age.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold had acne a couple of years ago. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I think this is a league now where if you draft a quarterback early, you play him. I think the day of sitting on the bench and learning that way, I think those days are over. I think if in preseason and during training camp it's close, he's starting. So my crystal ball says we will see J.J. McCarthy starting his career in the Meadowlands.
Okay, I could see both things happening.
Sure, I could be very easily talked into the other two.
And I think I agree with you anyway, like in general, that this is a league now where when you draft a quarterback high, you play him. And they don't really learn on the job. But I do think that there are sometimes exceptions. And I think with this particular skill set that J.J. McCarthy has, I think that this is a scenario in which he could be sitting behind Sam Darnold. But here's my thoughts here. I am not really too afraid of this Minnesota team. I think the one thing that is the most terrifying for me as a Giants fan watching this matchup is, can this defense in any capacity cover both Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison at the same time?
Especially on week one.
Yeah, and right now I think our opposite corner of Deontay Banks, who is only in his second year, might be Nick McLeod. It might be Cordell Flott. We're still not sure. It could be someone who's not on the roster right now. It's actually quite likely. So it's really, really difficult for me to sit here and say with any sort of confidence that this team could win. It's just difficult to say a win in pen. I do think that the unpredictability of how this offense changed for the Giants with no film, removing Saquon Barkley from the equation and adding somebody like Malik Neighbors, who simply by the position he plays is more impactful on the outcome of the game, and the ways in which a Brian Daboll can use him, I think for an unsuspecting team might be a problem. And for that reason, I'm going to say the Giants are going to win this one in a late shocker, whether it be a defensive stand, a blocked field goal, or a made field goal. This is a win in pencil.
Okay.
And I think that starting the year with some level of offensive hype with Malik Neighbors at home will assist in that. And whether it's Sam Darnold or J.J. McCarthy, I think either one of them is good for one critical mistake.
Okay.
That's where I'm landing on that one. So you were a loss in pencil, and I'm a win in pencil, huh?
That is correct.
Let's jet on over to. We'll ride the rails on over to scenic Washington D.C., which I didn't know. This is no longer FedEx Field. This is Commanders Field now.
FedEx asked to, be released from the contract for the naming rights, which is really saying something. If
Snyder's gone, and they still want it out.
Exactly. So and the name of the town is no longer Ray John, Maryland. If you remember, they named it, that little town where the stadium is a combination of the two kids of, I think, of Jack Kent Cooke, and they got rid of that name. So it's back to be called Landover again.
I had no idea it was ever not Landover.
Yeah, it was called Ray John. I think it was like Rachel and John, I think, were his kids' names or something.
Who says Americans don't have culture? The Giants are traveling to D.C./Maryland for a 1:00 game, week 2 against the Washington Commanders, now head coached by Dan Quinn. Cranky Fan, give me your prediction.
Oof, two teams that I just don't know who they are again. Again, we have the potential of facing a rookie quarterback 2 weeks in a row. This one does feel like a win in pencil. I am pretty positive that he's going to be starting. JJ McCarthy, we can debate whether they're going to give the keys to the car to him right away or let him sit a little bit. You're drafting a real face of the franchise. You are drafting a Heisman Trophy, quarterback. You are drafting the future right now. You are drafting a guy who's going to take some time, I think, in this league to be good. I don't know if he's going to have instant success. I think he's going to have to work a little bit. I think the Giants are catching Washington at the absolute right time. I look at this as a win in pencil.
This is very interesting to me because I think we think the same and came to different conclusions here.
Okay.
Here's what I'm looking at first and foremost. I couldn't agree more about Jaden Daniels. I do think he's an absolute face of the franchise, and I also think that he's going to take quite a bit of time to develop. I've been pretty consistent on this. I thought the Giants should get him specifically for this reason because they had the financial flexibility to bench him for an entire year if needed and have him learn the position because they were stuck with Daniel Jones anyway. However, here's where I think the biggest change for the new look Commanders is, and it's with the head coach. Ron Rivera is an excellent coach. I think he is a leader of men. But Dan Quinn is like, if Ron Rivera is Eisenhower, then Dan Quinn is I don't know, General Patton. This is somebody who's going to rile up the troops. I think he's a far more passionate head coach who is not being treated for cancer in this moment. I think he's going to be more fiery. I think he's going to get the fire in the bellies of this team going. I think that he did a good job of bringing in a bunch of skill position to have an explosive offense with Jaden Daniels at the forefront, but also Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz. He's already got Terry McLaurin and Josh Dotson. But more importantly to me, for this matchup specifically, is familiar names added to a very strong defense. Brought in Dante Fowler and Dorrance Armstrong. He also brought in Cleveland Farrell. They joined Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. They drafted Jerjon Newton. I think that at home against the Giants, Dan Quinn knows how to frustrate Daniel Jones. I think he knows the weaknesses of this offense and the offensive line, and I feel very strongly that this is a loss, even though I do not think that these Commanders are for real. I think early in the season, they will have the fire in their guts. They will not have been tested to their limits yet, and they won't be down in the dumps yet. I think that this Commanders team is going to be a mess, but I think that this is a loss in pen for us.
Loss in 10? Okay.
I feel very confidently that we're not winning this game. I don't like this looks like a decent Commanders defense. Like, this is Bobby Wagner at middle linebacker. You know what I mean? Like, each level of this defense looks very strong. I have no basis to think that the New York Giants offense can do jack shit against Dan Quinn because under Brian Daboll, they have not beaten Dan Quinn's defense once. They have been swept 2 years in a row, including a loss to their backup quarterback in like week 3 of 2022.
All right. This might be a race to 17 points this game, too.
That's also very possible. Here's the other thing. With Jaden Daniels, I do think that he's going to take quite a bit of time to understand seeing the field. But what he is very good at is being elusive, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, I could see 3 times Brian Burns or Kayvon Thibodeau almost getting him, but by not getting him, leaving some lane open for him to run for 65 yards.
See, I was actually thinking if this was last year's defense, we're being a little more aggressive than we think this year might be, that, he's able to exploit with his his athleticism over aggressiveness and having big run plays. But I think this year might be a little different. I think that might play a little bit to our advantage against a guy like him, who's going to be relying on his legs more than he probably wants to over the balance of his career.
That's definitely true. This would have been a worse matchup against Wink Martindale's defense. I think it would have been really catastrophic against the 2022 defense. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I still see this as being one of those things where you look at it and you're like, we won this game except for these 3 plays.
Yep. I think we might see quite a bit of that this year, too.
I agree.
Very honestly.
Propelling forward to the mistake on the lake, the Giants are traveling to Cleveland for week 3 for a 1 o'clock matchup against the Cleveland Browns, who found their way ass forwards into the playoffs with Joe Flacco at the helm. That will not be the case this year. I assume Deshaun Watson is clear to play right away. So, Cranky Fan, give me your thoughts on a week 3, 1 o'clock matchup at the Cleveland Browns.
This might be the first time I pull out the magic marker and loss, because I think there's no way we're going in there and winning. Second week in a row on the road, hostile crowd. I think Cleveland. I think, what's the national media thinking about Cleveland this year? Is it they're going to be one of those kind of buzzy teams?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
I feel like they're kind of one of those teams where people are going to get very excited about. I can't see us going in there, and winning. I just don't think we're good enough. Very honestly, I think Deshaun Watson, the first of my bold predictions, is going to have one of those, oh, this is what Deshaun Watson could have been type. His career could have been a game like this type of game. I just feel a more elusive, a better running version of what we saw the previous week. And I think he puts up some gaudy all-purpose yardage numbers against us. And I just don't see us winning there. I have it as a loss in pen.
When I look at this Cleveland Brown teams, I'm not really sure how they were so goddamn good last year. I just don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at on a roster sheet, on a depth chart that's just like, oh, I get it. Like, when I look at this matchup, I'm not really too worried. I'm worried about everything with the Giants. So, like, it has nothing to do with... I don't think the Giants are better, but...
This feels like one of those games. If this game was home, I think I have this as a win in pencil.
Okay.
I just don't think we're good enough to go into a place like this against a decent team and win. Not right now.
So, I think that this is a well-coached team, and I think this is a very experienced, knowledgeable quarterback. David Njoku is something. Nick Chubb is something. Amari Cooper. These are people.
Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy. I think the most important thing is that this is a team that is going, a defense that is still going to be figuring out their feet. There are experience holes, especially in the defensive backfield, right? And I think an experienced quarterback like Deshaun Watson will know exactly how to pick apart that defense. If he doesn't figure out in the film room and he doesn't figure it out in the first quarter, after a couple of drives, he'll figure out what they're doing that he can exploit. And I actually, I think that the Giants are going to come to this game to play, especially after losing to the Commanders the week before. I think that they're going to be in this one, but I feel like this is a heartbreak loss. Like, something in me tells me that this is a game that I'm going to be like having lockjaw out of sheer anger for like a week because of some stupid fumble or a missed field goal or something. This just feels like a heartbreak loss to me.
I can also see this being the game similar to like what Arizona was last year, where at halftime, we're assuming Dable is going to be, calling the plays this year, but something where they come out of the locker room in the second half and all of a sudden it's a different team and they come back and win. I could see that possible scenario too. I'm still sticking with my loss in Penn, but this could be that game where you're getting into, you know, quarter 9 of the season and things aren't really clicking, and all of a sudden maybe it temporarily clicks.
I could definitely see that, though that was a Josh Dobbs-led team.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, but Josh Dobbs doesn't play defense.
No, that's very true.
Yeah.
No, I could see that, though. I think, I don't know. Like I said, Cleveland is one of those, I don't think they're shitty, but the fact that they were so commandingly headed toward the playoffs before their quarterback got hurt was very bizarre to me, especially in such a traditionally tight division.
Would you say they were kind of like the Giants were the year before? Like, how is this team all of a sudden 11 wins in the playoffs?
No, because they went out and they got a big quarterback. It made sense until I don't know.
No, you just said I don't know how this team was before they got hurt.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, but the Giants, that was like none of those wins made any. They were all close wins, but that like random, what were we, like 6-1, 7-1? That was weird.
Yeah,
that made no sense.
That was just
a lot of dumb luck and good
lucky.
coaching. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cleveland has a great coach, so I think that's a lot of it.
Quick sidebar on close games and stuff. Do you attribute that? How much do you attribute that to the luck, and how much do you attribute that to good coaching?
I think
not even luck. Luck is not a fair word. Just kind of being fortunate in close games as opposed to good coaching.
Okay, here's my disclaimer on luck. You said luck is not a fair word. Luck is not fair. Life is not fair, and luck is part of everything in life. So, because I've been dealing with this thought since 2007. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the Giants got a lucky win in the 2007 Super Bowl. Okay? Luck is part of football. The way the ball bounces is luck. In the 2011 NFC Championship game, a punt bounced a very awkward way and hit a guy in the knee. That was a game-changing moment.
Yeah.
That luck is part of life and part of a game, and it's not fair. However, well-coached teams are in the right place at the right time more often. So I view luck and good coaching as kind of like two sides of the exact same coin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like when we say that guys are natural ball hawks, a lot of that is just they're in the right place. They're just doing their jobs, and when the ball bounces, they're there for it. So, it's not lucky that they get lots of interceptions. You know what I mean? So where do I place that? I think it's a decent portion. I actually think, people say like special teams is 1/3 of the game. I think that 1/3 of the game is really just good coaching and luck.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's close to 30%. Yeah. Why? What about you?
I think the luck factor plays a lot more than people think it is, because people are like, oh, they're 9-2 in one score games. It's like a lot of it is just sometimes, you flip a coin 50 times and the odds say it's 50-50, but sometimes it's 90-10, and it's just the way it is. I think it's a lot of the way it is more than I made the right play call on third down, or I had the right scheme or something. I just think balls bouncing funny, or that, I think that plays a lot into it, and because it's hard to replicate it. Brian Dable is the same coach he was the year before, and are they going to have the same record in one score games, or one possession games, or things like that? It doesn't. It's not always a consistent thing with teams. So I think the luck factor or the fortunate factor is higher than. They have to give credit to coaches. I think a lot of it's just the way the ball bounces.
Absolutely. I was going to say something. I don't remember what it was, but yeah.
That could have been our Webby right there, but
yeah.
No.
I like that conversation though, because I think luck is part of it. I think good coaching is part of it. This is what I was going to say. We say this all the time, in that the difference between the best team in the NFL and the worst in the NFL is not all that much. When we look at rosters, when it comes to the players on the field, it's not a huge difference. And the biggest difference, honestly, is probably coaching and luck. I mean,
And health could be attributed to luck too.
Exactly. Saquon Barkley walking backwards after the whistle was blown and rolling his ankle is absolutely just dumb bad luck.
It's bad luck. Yeah.
Speaking of bad luck, the Giants then take on the Dallas Cowboys on a fucking Thursday game again, at home following that Browns game. So on a short amount of rest, they play their division rival on Amazon because Amazon didn't get the bang for their buck that they wanted in the first 2 years. So now we're spoon feeding them to them. Cranky Fan, tell me a little bit about Cowboys versus Giants. Cowboys at Giants.
That sounds like it's going to be a miserable experience for everybody involved. I think it's going to be miserable for the Giants having to play a team like Dallas with not that much time to prepare, not that much time to rest. I think it's going to be a miserable crowd. I think you're going to see one of the highest ratio of Cowboy fans to Giant fans you'll potentially ever see at MetLife, other than it being like a week 17 and the Giants are 3-1,000,000 and the Cowboys have clinched. This is going to be the week where the talking heads really start to get on the Giants' case. And this is where the talk of hot seats is going to start. This is where the talk of, okay, this is now we potentially have a fourth coach that's been a bust. All these different things are going to happen. I just can't see, in optimal situation, bye week, at home, 1:00, everybody healthy, going up against a team like Dallas. I give them a fighting chance at home. Maybe that might be with giant colored glasses, saying maybe I'll squeak out a Giants and pencil for this one. But with pissing into, again, a hurricane wind in your face with every factor going against you. And remember too, they're going to be on the road for 2 weeks before this, so their normal routines are all screwed up. So if they're playing, that Cleveland game is a 1:00 Sunday, they get a flyback Sunday night. They're not going to be in their normal routine. I just can't see how they win this game. We know all about the Cowboys. We know all about, we saw them get blown out twice last year. Although you can put somewhat asterisk on both of them due to no Andrew Thomas in the first game. Playing with Tommy DeVito the second game. So let's not get crazy about what happened last year. Is really a follow through for this year, but Dallas is much better than us, and I just, it might be very close to a home game for them. So I'm putting this as a loss in Ben as well. And I have this at the quarter turn at 1-3, and the red flags are starting to wave.
How do you feel about 1-3?
About what I expect.
Seeing as how you're predicting it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just kind of, I think this team is after the quarter, we're playing, 2 home games, 2 away games, 2 teams that, 2 teams that were playoff teams last year, I guess, or close to playoff teams. Yeah, they're about 1-3.
I think that this is the final year of the Mike McCarthy Cowboys era.
I buy that.
You buy that. Okay, so the way I'm looking at this is Dan Quinn is gone. I have thought for a while that the Dan Quinn defense was far more scary than the Mike McCarthy offense. I don't want to belabor the point. I've been pretty vocal about it. But what I'm really trying to transition to is that Mike Zimmer is an excellent defensive coordinator. He's already shown that he's a pretty darn good head coach. He was at least fairly successful as a head coach in Minnesota. And he was brought in to coach the defense. I do think that this is a kick in Mike McCarthy's ass by Jerry Jones, that he brought in someone that had head coaching experience already.
Let's sidebar again for a second. Do you think at the end of last season Mike McCarthy would be the coach right now?
I was very surprised, but I knew there was no way the two of them were going to coexist between Quinn and McCarthy. That didn't make any sense. Like, I thought Quinn was going to take the job and McCarthy was going to get fired. That's the path I thought. But I could in no way see the two of them working together. It was far too, I don't want to say like divisive, but it was just like Dan Quinn was succeeding in every measure from the moment he got there, and Mike McCarthy was not elevating that team at all.
Here's what I think happened. This is a complete guess because I have no insider knowledge what the Cowboys do.
Carmack says...
Carmack... something that is the second Carmack reference I've heard today.
Wow, I haven't thought about Carmack in like 10 years.
And I know it was, I'm going to give the credit to the Press Box podcast, because they said, Carmack says, and the other guy actually said, for those who are old enough to actually remember that reference. So, and if anybody listening to this, if you're still listening, doesn't know who Carmack is, Google The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. So, what my guess was that job was his if he wanted it, to be the head coach of the Cowboys. And I think they would have launched McCarthy. I think Quinn told Jerry Jones that he didn't want the job and he was going somewhere else. And I think that's why McCarthy stayed.
Why? Because he wanted a quarterback?
Yeah.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
I think also, I don't think the Cowboy job is, it sounds on the surface like a glamorous role, but I think there's a lot of nonsense with that team where you can be just as successful somewhere else with less of the glare and the national scrutiny and the Skip Baylesses and all the bullshit that surrounds the circus that's the Dallas Cowboys.
10 years, not even 5 years ago, I would have agreed with you just as hard as I'm agreeing with you now about that. But everyone else on earth would tell us that we're crazy and that the Cowboys job is the most coveted sports job in the world. And I think that everything that's happened with college football in the last 12 months proves that there are things you can get paid doing something else, not in the most glamorous position where you've got an owner up your ass and you've got national media giving you a catheter every week. You know what I mean? Like,
my simple question is, why is it the most glamorous job in sports? I mean, you're dealing with Jerry Jones
every day.
You are dealing with unrealistic expectations, regardless of what your roster is. I don't see it. Why? And also, if it's so glamorous, look at the guys they've hired in the last 20 years.
Yeah, not very glamorous.
Just watch some of those Hard Knocks and some of these mopes they've had as their head coach. The Camposes and these guys are. These are not top. The days of them hiring Bill Parcells,
Jimmy Johnson,
and Jimmy Johnson are.
Who's the other guy? Switzer.
Gone. Yeah, and Barry Switzer pulling like one of the elite college coaches of his generation up. Those days are long, long, long gone. Even Mike McCarthy. I mean, Mike McCarthy is synonymous with his quarterback.
It's true.
I don't even see where that's the glamorous job that now quarterback of the Cowboys, that's a different story.
Now listen, I think that this is the final year of the Mike McCarthy Cowboys era. I think that
100. Do you think he makes it through the season?
I think he makes it through the season.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I can see them sputtering and very easily see him sputtering and getting smoked.
Well, I do see a pathway where he gets smoked and Zimmer gets the interim head coach job and then the head coach job at the end of the year. I could see it. It's not like I'm blind to it, but I just don't think it happens.
Lose this Giants game and that could be a possibility.
Sure. So let me ask you this. What is so scary about this particular Cowboys team to you? Because this is not the hardest matchup that they have had against the Cowboys in recent years. This is, what are the offensive weapons here? Ezekiel Elliott, Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, and Brandon Cooks. That's your wide receiver duo. It's. I'm not saying it's terrible or bad. It's just we've seen much tougher matchups with this Cowboys team very recently.
We have spent a lifetime ripping on Dak Prescott on this show. We've debated.
I didn't even mention him.
I know, but I'm saying though, but I'm going to still say so far he's by far the best quarterback they have faced so far in this, early part of the season. And he seems to play well against us. So,
I would say that I think Deshaun Watson is more scary to me than Dak Prescott, but
interesting.
I would.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have coming out of college, so it's not like I love Deshaun Watson or anything like that, but one of them was a first-round pick and the other was a fourth. So
yeah, I was not. I mean, I saw Dak play, in person, in college. He
So you saw him on a bad team, and what was he?
he was a system guy that Dan Mullen could use. He worked well. And I've seen other quarterbacks that Dan Mullen have these system guys and not be very good either.
So when I look at this Cowboys team, I think that in the past it was very easy to win when you had an offense on the other side of the field that couldn't even move the ball an inch. You know what I mean? We were absolutely fucking helpless against that defense. They knocked the shit out of Daniel Jones to the point where he was foaming at the mouth. You know what I mean? Like they in the first drive, after a blocked field goal or whatever happened in that first game, oh, man, that game was absolutely painful. Opening day last year, the home opener.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn is gone. Mike Zimmer is a great defensive coordinator, but he runs a very different style. And I think that maybe it's possible that players that were able to play a little bit more freely, like perhaps Micah Parsons, perhaps Trayvon Diggs, in the prior scheme, will be asked to do things more traditional to their position. Like what is Micah Parsons' position? Edge, linebacker, outside linebacker, inside linebacker. Exactly. But
he's MP. He's a Micah Parsons.
It's possible that Mike Zimmer continues to use him effectively in that role. It's also possible that he puts him in the middle of the defense. It's possible that Trayvon Diggs does not have the freedom to just give super off coverage and trust his technique to close and get all these interceptions. He's also coming off of an injury. I think that this offense looks less scary to me than it has in the past, and this defense this early in the year under a new coordinator might be less scary to me. I still think that this is a loss in pencil, and that's how I'm going to predict this, because the Thursday turnaround after the Browns away game, like you said, that's a lot to ask. This team, the Giants, are not good enough for any Thursday matchup. They're all going to be bad. Even against bad teams, they are not good enough to win in unfair scenarios like a 3-day turnaround.
That takes me from a pencil to a pen. I mean, I could see a world. I can see one or two worlds. I can see a world where, okay, we putting up a valiant fight and we just lose, but could have gone either way. Or I could see just getting our asses handed to us. The Thursday factor, we have to outcoach teams to win games this year as much as beat them on the field. It has to be, and you're just losing time, and you're losing preparation time.
So, I mean, remember, the Cowboys have the 3-day turnaround too, and they are starting their season off with the Browns, Saints, Ravens. That's not a pleasant trip to walk into a Thursday game from. Sure. So, I think this looks like a weaker roster in Dallas to me. It looks like weaker coaching in Dallas to me. And I think maybe, like I said, there's going to be a reason Mike McCarthy isn't here in 2025. And I think the Cowboys are just not going to be that good this year. If you remember how the playoff game ended for them, I don't know if you saw, but they tried to interview Jerry Jones immediately after the game and how he felt. Mm-hmm. And it was like the most inarticulate, like you could tell he was ready to absolutely just sock a reporter in the face, storm past them, go into a room and rip everyone a new asshole. But he's a professional owner. He knows how to work the TV business, and he tried to collect himself, and he just said a bunch of words that meant nothing.
He also had 12 Johnny Walkers too.
I'm sure, yeah, but he's a Southern guy. He knows how to handle his liquor and make sense. I think he was truly ready. I think that moment may have saved McCarthy's job. The brief moment where he was stopped in between the locker room and I think he's about fucking Hadden, and he's not going to stand for another disappointing year under Mike McCarthy. So,
well, something, I was kind of mostly joking, but sort of not. A comment I made during this offseason where I said, hey, man, I'm 51 years old. I don't have a complete lifetime to worry about teams. Like, I want to start seeing results because I don't have the 20-year plan left. Jerry Jones is how old? 80-something?
I don't even know.
He's old. Like, all of these guys, like Kraft, he's old. The owner of the Bears, whatever her name, Jean McCaskill, she's old. these owners, they don't have the time to rebuild. They want to win and they want results, and they will make changes because they're in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So you may see some decisions that might seem a little irrational, if not warranted, but accelerated because I just got the 2-minute warning on my watch, And Jerry Jones is one of those guys, I think, who thinks in terms of years and not multi-year plans. Like, is this Jerry Jones gonna build, the new stadium now? Probably not.
No, I don't think so.
Right, like all these major things that he did younger in his life, where he's can, have the fruit of these rewards for all these different things. But when you start getting into your 80s and your, mid 80s, then you're old. I got to see it now, man. He hasn't won a Super Bowl in a long freaking time, and I'm sure he wants to win one more before, he's 6 feet under.
He hasn't even sniffed a Super Bowl in a long time.
When have they even been like to the second Saturday?
All right, so let me ask you this then, and we'll close it on this.
All right.
If that's your career, like, how disappointing is it as an owner to buy a team, get very early success, and then be the always a bridesmaid, never a bride for like 3 decades?
Well,
I mean, like, it's hard to look at 3 championships, right, and be like, that was a bad ownership. Like, that doesn't make any sense. No one would say that. But when it's all clustered at the very beginning and then nothing for a long time, how does that make you feel, Cranky Fan, if it were you?
Ask a Cleveland Brown fan who has no championships, no Super Bowl rings. It's kind of like
their perspective is different, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you have success to start with, you are so much more focused on years and years of failure that followed, right?
No,
when you start with lots of failures, you can really savor your success at the end.
No. I'm talking about having the early success and then being failures later on is 1,000 times better than never having them at all, I think. Remember, Jerry Jones is one of the greatest owners in NFL history because, not only the success they had, the Super Bowls and everything, but he transformed the league. Like, he's one of the main factors why this league generates so much money that it does, and made it such a financial windfall for other owners and the league too. So I don't think he looks at it in terms of failure on the field. I think, they remain, 20 years plus since their last whiff of a Super Bowl or anything. They're still the most popular team in the league. They still draw the most eyeballs. He still has the most, still the richest team in North American sports. I don't think he can look at it as far as being a failure in any aspect. I think it's frustrating that they haven't won, but failure, no. And I don't look at it as a failure.
No, I wouldn't look at it as a failure either. But I don't know. I think a person like him is a person somewhat like myself in that very self-critical.
Sure.
So sure. I would look at that and be like, all of those little things I did here and there after that kind of looks like I fucked it up. Or maybe I let this guy do this for too long, or maybe I shouldn't have swung for the fences on this guy. I would kind of be looking internally.
But I think the one thing you can probably, if you were to do a real self-evaluation with Jerry Jones, was, should I have been the GM of this team? Or should I have the vast resources that I have go out and hire the best general manager in the league? I mean, he swung for the fences for a Bill Parcells. They are not afraid to spend in free agency. They're going to give Dak another monster contract. He invested billions, again, like in that stadium. They invested billions in, that facility in Frisco, which is, the Cowboys own and everything. I think his biggest mistake, if you ever look back and do an honest self-assessment, was owners that are GMs may not be the best idea.
Right.
Let the experts do that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think that's been kind of his shining mistake.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But even so, I mean, they still first up. So when it's like quote unquote an amateur GM, they still make the playoffs every once in a while. He's still.
I get that, but I mean, if you're willing to shell out money willy-nilly, like, that almost seems like not a foregone conclusion, but like when you're spending that money in every direction, the coaching and the assistant coaches, and then all the players at that point, you're getting the best training visits. It's almost like making the playoffs is like a letdown, if that's all you can say. Like, I spent all this team and I got a wild card spot and I lost in the first round, or I won the division but I lost in the first round every year.
But remember, in a salary cap league where the worst teams draft highest, it's not baseball where haves and have-nots based on money. There's other factors too. So
absolutely, but you get my point. This isn't the Pittsburgh Pirates here, not spending money at all.
True.
That's going to do it for this. We're going to continue going down the season predictions. We are also going to be on Talkin' Giants very soon. We are recording that one tomorrow, so I'm not sure when it's going to air, but look out for that. Talkin' Giants with Bobby Skinner and Justin Pennick will also feature the Football Grump and the Cranky Fan, as well as, I believe, a host of other Giants content creators. So that's definitely going to be a really, really fun episode to continue watch for that. We're also going to have a pair of bonus episodes that are coming up that you're not going to want to miss. Coming up in probably the next, what is it? I think it's 2 weeks at this point.
Approximately, yeah.
Yeah. So be on the lookout. And to do that, of course, subscribe to us on YouTube is the easiest way, or on a podcast listening platform such as Spotify or iTunes or SoundCloud or any of those, where you will just get these episodes when they've been released. But if you are more the I need a reminder type and I don't like subscribing to things, then that kind of sucks. But you can follow us on Twitter at JustGiantsPod, at football_grump, and at the Cranky Fan,
where you're basically subscribing somewhere else. So
yep, pretty much.
Just go ahead and subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite audio platform.
Yes. We do not at this time have the budget for a carrier pigeon service for reminders. We're working on it. Pony Express is coming after that. We've got a budget lined up for all that shit. But until then, we'll see you guys next time. Go Giants.
Go Giants.